All right, welcome back. We continue. Bob Pompeani, Chris Mueller with you. Got a lot of tweets after I was just looking at this Franmil Reyes, who is a power-hitting kid. He was involved in a big trade once with San Diego. He ends up in Washington. Cleveland has him. They decide to release him, and he's available. He's, I think, 27, Chris, and he has a big power resume, although he strikes out an awful lot, which who doesn't today? I was curious if the Cubs didn't take him, and the Cubs are in a rebuild, and quite frankly, so are the Pirates, who need a first baseman and maybe some right-hand bat. What do you think they would have done? Would they have taken him? Because I would have.
I mean, I don't think you want me to ask or to answer, excuse me, Bob, what the Pirates would have done.
Yeah.
I guess I would say I don't think they would have taken him. They should have.
It's only $1.5 million and then arbitration, right? So I mean, come on.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just wondering if it was even on their radar. I'm not even talking about the cost so much, but when you have a chance to acquire raw power, which is, starting pitching is the most valuable commodity in many ways in baseball, then raw power is probably the second most valuable commodity. If you have a chance to get it on the cheap, why wouldn't you? I mean, why wouldn't anybody be strongly considering that, especially if they have a void at first base, which we know the Pirates have, because I could go all the way back to, this is my favorite one, Ron Wright, acquired in the Denny Nagel trade from the Braves, who never panned out. They have just cycled through hapless first baseman after hapless first baseman with very few exceptions. So sure, they absolutely should have tried to take a crack if they had the chance.
Plus, they get not much power out of Key Brian Hayes. They have none at first base. Who knows who plays there next year? They were hoping Mason Martin would work out. He's gone backwards, so who knows what that answer is going to be. But they're playing tonight in Colorado, and we'll see what they do after losing 2 or 3 over the weekend in Baltimore. Meantime, we've got a lot of callers. Let's go out to Ed in Castle Shannon. Ed, welcome to the program. Go ahead.
Hey, Bob, how you doing? Hi, Chris.
Hey.
Hey.
Hey, you know what, Bob? I agree with Chris. I think Kenny Pickett should start this season.
Well,
I mean, there's no reason not to if he's the best guy. Like that's the big thing here, Bob, and that's what I think. That's what I think has people like. I don't know that he's
been the best guy overall so far. He's been made improvements.
No, I know. I'm saying if.
Yeah,
I'm saying if. Like
eventually he will be. It's just right now I think they'd rather. And let me ask you, Chris, behind that offensive line, if that doesn't come together and show improvement, I feel sorry for just about anyone who's back there.
No, I know. I mean, that is a viable. I think Pony's rebuttal to that is always, well, don't live in your fears. Mike Tomlin doesn't live in his fears. But if it's a terrible offensive line, then they absolutely should probably put a sacrificial lamb out there. But no, the thing I want to get to just quickly is if Pickett really is the best guy for the job, even if that offensive line worries you, I think you still go out there and you start him. Like I know that Pony occasionally drives some of our listeners nuts with the Kenny Pickett love, but there's nobody here with a resume ahead of him that warrants just blind faith that that guy is going to be your starting quarterback. Like, I still refuse to see this Mitch Trubisky hype that people are trying to occasionally put forth here. There's nothing in his background that suggests that the Steelers have anything other than a fringe starter and likely backup type quarterback.
Except for the fact he was a number 2 overall pick, and they may believe that he has the pedigree in a system that may be better for him, and with 6 years or 5 years of experience under his belt, then maybe it's time for him to make that next step. I mean, that's possible as well. So we'll see. I mean, there are a number of quarterbacks who've come and gone, and you wonder. I look at a guy like Trey Lance and a guy like Zach Wilson. I think the emphasis on being a quarterback and having a good one forces teams to draft guys who really aren't worthy of the position in which they're drafted. Trey Lance, to me, was not a number 3 overall pick. Zach Wilson, to me, you're going to find out he's going to take another route, and it won't be as a franchise quarterback. That's why I think, in many ways, teams, I don't know this year what the case was, I thought many more would take quarterbacks. I thought Malik Willis would be gone in the first. I thought all these guys would go sooner rather than later, Chris, and they didn't, which makes me curiously wonder why the Steelers went for Pickett when they did, when other teams that needed quarterbacks chose not to take him.
I mean, I think we know that it was a pretty notoriously weak quarterback class.
Was he overdrafted?
Malik Willis, I don't think so, because I think on almost every scouts board he was the one first-round pick, and you were hearing later first round about him a lot of the time. So, no, I don't really think they overdrafted. I mean, people bent over backwards to try to connect Malik Willis to Mike Tomlin and that Tomlin would stomp and pound the table for Malik Willis and that he would come here in the first round trying to forecast a disaster that was never going to happen because Tomlin was a Pickett guy all along. I don't think he was overdrafted. I'll tell you what I do think there's going to be, though, because he's not like a slam dunk Trevor Lawrence type guy, and because they didn't take Dan Marino 40 years ago and everything else. I think there is going to be a bit of a whiplash effect with some fans here where they are skeptical of the pick more so than they otherwise would be because of all the extraneous factors, the external factors that went into it. So I don't think that's fair to pick it either. Like, I don't think it would be fair to just say he's going to be a golden god here because he's from Pitt and he's a hometown hero of sorts. I also don't think it's fair to bury the guy just because you think the Steelers reached because you have visions of Dan Marino dancing through your head.
No, I think those are both good points. And once again, could be Mike Tomlin playing those semantics game. You know, he was all over Malik Willis. He went to dinner with him, bought him ice cream, all these things, and people are saying that's the connection. And he was leading people in a different direction without us even knowing, which is interesting. That's interesting. I've always amazed how some of these guys will lay this stuff out, trying to make you think one way, and they're doing it so that they can make other organizations think they're not interested when in fact they are. Let's go to John in Ross Township. John, what's up?
Hey, Bob and Chris. My question's with Major League Baseball. What's your take on the base runner at first base? They use that mitt, and it's like a glove.
Another mitt.
A mitten, yeah. That by them sliding into head first slide into second base, and the way challenges are today, that mitt could be 2 inches longer.
Well,
isn't the whole point here, like, in all seriousness, yes, you could have an Inspector Gadget, go Gadget mitt, perhaps, and eventually they'd have to crack down on extend-a-mitts. I'm sure the Houston Astros are working on one right now.
It's like goaltenders' pads, right? Too big, just put them in there. Another inch makes a difference.
Sooner or later, you have a guy with a pool noodle strapped to his wrist trying to steal bases or something like that. But my thought was that mitt was always to try to protect fingers from getting broken, that it was to protect wrists to some degree, and that these guys didn't have to jam their hand into the base. You know, I'll show it this way. So if that's the case, honest, this might like annoy John right there, our caller, but I got no problem with it really. If its main purpose and it doesn't get out of hand with it's this long or something like that. If it doesn't get out of hand and it's protecting from injury, I don't think there's anything really wrong with that. I'd prefer to see healthy players.
Speaking of that, I just want to ask you this question because we got to go to break. You can answer it when we come back. I hope you saw that play at home plate in the Minnesota game yesterday. Rocco Baldelli got thrown out of the game, and I thought he had a legitimate case. What was an out call, but because the catcher so-called blocked the plate, that didn't happen. So, Chris, did you see that play by any chance?
I did.
Okay, don't talk yet. We're gonna go to break. When I come back, I want to get your take on it, just because I thought it was very interesting, and I think the game has just gone too soft, as Michael Terry likes to say. We'll be right back after this.